Part 1. The alien ship appeared at the edge of human space like a jewel floating in the darkness. It was beautiful, there was no denying that. The vessel stretched 3 kilometers long, and its hull was made of some kind of crystal that caught the light of distant stars and turned it into rainbows. Inside the ship, Commander Zealith felt very pleased with himself. Zealith was a Valorian, which meant he had 4 eyes, blue skin, and a body that stood almost 7 feet tall. He had been making first contact with younger species for 50 years now, and he knew exactly how this would go. The primitive humans would see his magnificent ship and feel amazed. They would beg to join the Valorian Empire and learn from their advanced civilization. It happened every single time. His assistant, a younger Valorian named Kresh, stood beside him on the command deck. Kresh was nervous, which Zealith found amusing. What if they are not impressed? Kresh asked quietly. Zealith laughed, a sound like wind chimes. They achieved faster than light travel only 70 years ago. 70 years. We have been traveling the stars for 4,000 years. Trust me, they will be very impressed. The message from Earth had been simple and short. It gave them coordinates near a planet called Jupiter and told them when to arrive. No fancy greetings or long speeches. Zealith thought this was probably because the humans did not know the proper way to greet an advanced species. He would teach them. The Valorian ship jumped through space and arrived near Jupiter right on time. The gas giant was huge and impressive, with storms bigger than entire planets swirling across its surface. Zealith prepared his welcoming speech in his mind. He would be kind but firm. The humans needed to understand their place in the universe. Then the sensors started making noise. "Loud, urgent noise, Commander," the tactical officer said, and his voice shook slightly. "I am detecting ships. Many ships. Very large ships." Zealith felt his confidence slip just a little. He pulled up the display to see what the officer meant, and his primary heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. There were dozens of ships hanging in space near Jupiter, and they were enormous. The biggest one was called the USS Frontier according to the identification signal it was broadcasting. It was 5 kilometers long. 5 kilometers. That made it bigger than Zealith's ship, and his ship was the pride of the Valorian fleet. But size was not the most shocking thing about the Frontier. The human ship looked like it was built for war. Its hull was covered in thick armor plating. Weapons covered every surface. There were ports for railguns, tubes for missiles, and arrays for energy weapons. The ship looked like it had been designed by someone who expected to fight a terrible battle and wanted to make sure they won. Around the Frontier, smaller ships held perfect formation. Cruisers and destroyers, each one also covered in weapons and armor. The ships did not look new and shiny like Valorian vessels. They looked used. There were scorch marks on their hulls and repaired sections. These were ships that had seen real combat training, maybe even real battles. "This must be their entire fleet," Zealith said, trying to sound confident. "They brought everything they have to impress us." But he did not really believe his own words. A human face appeared on the communication screen. It was a woman with dark hair pulled back tightly. She wore a military uniform that looked crisp and professional. Her eyes were calm and intelligent. "This is Admiral Susan Drake of the United Earth Navy," she said. Her voice was pleasant but absolutely firm. "Welcome to human space, Commander Zealith. I hope your journey was comfortable." Zealith straightened up, trying to look as impressive as possible. "Admiral Drake, I am Commander Zealith of the Valorian Empire. We come in peace, offering knowledge and friendship. We invite you to join the galactic community." Drake's face did not show much emotion. "We appreciate that, Commander. I should let you know that this is just our greeting fleet. Standard procedure for first contact situations. Nothing too fancy. Your greeting fleet." Zealith heard himself repeat stupidly. "Yes, this is the 3rd fleet. We have 8 other fleets on regular patrol, but we did not want to overwhelm you with too many ships." The words hit Zealith like a physical punch. 9 fleets. If each fleet was this size, that meant the humans had hundreds of these massive warships. The Valorian Empire had exactly 3 fleets for their entire territory of 200 star systems. "I see," Zealith managed to say. "Perhaps we should proceed with formal introductions." "Of course," Drake replied smoothly. "You have permission to dock with the Frontier. We have prepared a reception area for you." As the Valorian ship moved slowly toward the massive human battleship, Zealith stared at it with completely new eyes. He noticed launch bays for fighter craft, hundreds of them. He saw point defense systems covering every angle, ready to shoot down incoming missiles or torpedoes. He saw the massive engines that could push such a huge ship to incredible speeds. "Sir," the science officer called out nervously, "I am analyzing their hull composition. The armor is layered. It uses multiple types of metal alloys, materials that disperse energy, and compounds that can heal themselves if damaged. This is not decorative armor for parades. These ships are built to survive real warfare." Zealith felt cold despite the warm temperature of the command deck. "Who did they build these ships to fight?" he whispered. Nobody had an answer. The docking process took 20 minutes. The whole time, Zealith stared at the human ship and felt his worldview crumbling. He had come here expecting to meet primitives who would be grateful for Valorian guidance. Instead, he had found something he never expected. He had found equals. Maybe more than equals. As the airlock opened and Zealith prepared to meet the humans face to face, he realized something important. This first contact was not going to go the way he had planned. Not at all. The humans were not going to beg for help or knowledge. They were not going to accept a junior position in the Galactic Order. They had built themselves into a military power that could rival any empire in known space, and they had done it in just 70 years. Zealith took a deep breath and stepped through the airlock. Whatever happened next, the galaxy had just changed. A new player had entered the game, and they were already holding all the best cards. He just hoped the Valorian Empire was smart enough to treat them as friends instead of making them into enemies. Part 2, the reception hall inside the USS Frontier surprised Zealith. He had expected something grand and decorated, like Valorian meeting chambers with their golden walls and floating crystals. Instead, he found a simple room with basic chairs, a long table, and walls covered in star charts and tactical displays. This was a working space, not a throne room. Admiral Drake gestured for the Valorian delegation to sit down. Beside her sat Captain Greg Murphy, who commanded the Frontier, and a civilian woman named Linda Hayes who worked as a diplomatic advisor. Murphy was older, with gray hair and a face that showed many years of hard work. Linda had kind eyes but a serious expression. "Before we talk about trade agreements and treaties," Drake began, "I think you need to understand our history. It will help explain what you saw outside." She activated a holographic display that floated above the table. A blue and green planet appeared, rotating slowly. Earth. It looked beautiful and peaceful. "For most of our existence," Drake continued, "humans lived on just one planet, and we spent most of that time fighting each other. We had wars over land, resources, religion, and ideology. Terrible wars that killed millions of people." Zealith nodded. Most species went through such phases before they unified and became civilized. The Valorians had fought their last major war 6,000 years ago. They had learned wisdom and moved beyond such primitive behavior. "Then we invented nuclear weapons," Drake said quietly. "Devices that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We came very close to making our whole planet uninhabitable." "But you survived," Zealith observed. "You learned peace." Linda Hayes smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Not exactly, Commander. We learned not to destroy ourselves, but we never stopped preparing for war. Even as we unified our planet and reached for the stars, we remembered everything we had learned about fighting." The display changed to show human expansion into space. Colonies on Mars, mining stations in asteroid belts, orbital platforms around various planets. "When we developed faster-than-light travel," Drake explained, "we did not assume we would find friendly neighbors out here. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war." "That explains the fleets," Zealith said quietly. "That explains the fleets," Drake agreed. "Every ship you saw was designed to operate alone for months if necessary. They are built to take massive damage and keep fighting. The crews train constantly for combat situations." Captain Murphy leaned forward. "Commander Zealith, the Frontier has been in service for 12 years. In that time, we have upgraded her weapon systems twice. We run combat drills every single week. Every member of my crew can operate multiple stations and perform emergency repairs while under attack." "But you have had peace," Zealith protested. "You have not encountered any enemies." "Not yet," Drake said simply. "But we have studied our own history too carefully to be caught unprepared." The holographic display changed again, showing detailed schematics of human weapons. Railguns that could punch through a kilometer of solid steel, missiles with nuclear warheads measured in gigatons, energy weapons that could melt through ship armor in seconds, point defense systems capable of tracking thousands of incoming threats at once. We do not build weapons because we want to use them, Linda Hayes said softly. We build them hoping we will never need them. But if that day comes, we will be ready. Zalith felt a chill run through his body. The Valorians had energy shields and plasma weapons, certainly. But Valorian ships were built for exploration and trade first, with weapons added as an afterthought. These human vessels were exactly the opposite. They were weapons that happened to have diplomatic capabilities attached. How many ships does Earth have? Zalith asked, though part of him did not want to know the answer. Drake glanced at Murphy, who nodded slightly. Currently operational, we have 863 capital ships across 9 fleets, 12,000 support vessels, 40,000 fighter craft. Our ground forces number 8 million soldiers, all equipped with powered armor and heavy weapons. The numbers were staggering. The entire Valorian military had perhaps a third of that strength, spread across 200 worlds. But your population, Zalith stammered. You only have one homeworld and a few small colonies. We have billions of people across our empire. Earth has 12 billion people, Linda corrected gently. Our colonies have another 3 billion. And Commander, this is our peacetime strength. In a real crisis, we could double our production within 2 years. Zalith's mind struggled to process this information. These humans had been in space for only 70 years, and they already had a military that matched the greatest empires in the galaxy. What would they become in another century? Another 1,000 years? Why, he finally asked. Why maintain such overwhelming force? Admiral Drake's expression softened just a little. Because we know what we are capable of, Commander. We have seen what humans do to each other when resources become scarce, when fear takes hold. When we think we are fighting for survival, we have built these fleets not to conquer others, but to make sure no one can ever do to us what we once did to ourselves. She stood and walked to the large window where Jupiter filled the view. We genuinely want peace, Commander Zalith. We want to trade. We want to learn. We want to join the galactic community, but we will do it from a position of strength. We will never again be vulnerable to those who might wish us harm. Captain Murphy added, every human child learns our history in school. They visit memorial stations. They see archived footage of our wars. They understand what we are capable of at our worst. And then many of them join the fleet. Not because they want to fight, but because they want to make sure we never have to. Zalith looked at the 3 humans sitting across from him. They were not conquerors or warmongers. They were survivors, deeply scarred by their own history and absolutely determined never to repeat it. In a way, it was admirable. It showed wisdom and self-awareness. It was also terrifying. What do you want from the galactic community? Zalith asked. Respect, Drake said immediately. We want to be treated as equals. We want fair trade. We want to share knowledge and culture. We want friends and allies. But we will not be anyone's junior partner or protectorate. We negotiate as equals or not at all. Linda Hayes pulled up another display. We have much to offer. Our medical technology is quite advanced. Our computer systems are very efficient. We have unique approaches to engineering problems. We are willing to share all of this. In exchange for? Zalith asked. The same things any civilization wants. Access to new technologies, trade routes, cultural exchange, knowledge about the galaxy and the species in it. Nothing unreasonable. Zalith sat back in his chair, thinking hard. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Usually the younger species was eager and grateful, willing to accept whatever terms the older civilizations offered. But the humans were different. They were polite but firm. They offered friendship but not submission. I will need to report all of this to my government, Zalith said finally. Of course, Drake replied. Take all the time you need. We are patient. As Zalith stood to leave, Captain Murphy spoke one more time. Commander, one more thing you should know. Everything we have shown you, everything we have told you is the truth. We have not exaggerated or bluffed. If anything, we have been modest about our capabilities. The words hung in the air like a weight. Zalith nodded slowly and led his delegation back to their ship. As they crossed the docking corridor, Kresh whispered to him, What do we do now? Zalith looked back at the massive human battleship one more time. We make very sure that humanity becomes our friend, not our enemy. Because I would not want to fight these people. I really would not. Part 4 that evening, Commander Zalith requested a private meeting with Admiral Drake. They met in her office aboard the Frontier, which turned out to be surprisingly modest. There were old paper books on shelves, star charts on the walls, and a single photograph of Earth taken from the moon. No grand decorations or displays of wealth. Admiral, Zelith began carefully, I must speak with complete honesty. Please do, Drake replied. She poured 2 glasses of water and offered one to him. Your military capabilities far exceed what any single system civilization should possess. The Valorian Empire took 3,000 years to build comparable forces. You have done it in 70 years. This is deeply concerning. Drake nodded slowly. Our difficult history forced us to develop faster than normal. That is exactly what concerns me, Zelith said, leaning forward. The galactic community has rules, Admiral. Unwritten rules, perhaps, but rules that everyone follows. There is a balance between species. The strong protect the weak. Trade flows freely. Territorial disputes are settled through negotiation and compromise. And you are worried we will disrupt that balance. I am terrified you will, Zelith admitted. Your people are brilliant, ambitious, and aggressive. You have weaponized technologies that most species use for peaceful purposes. If you decided to turn those fleets outward, toward conquest, no one could stop you. We will not do that, Drake interrupted firmly. Commander, do you know what we call the wars that nearly destroyed our civilization? Your world wars, yes. 2 of them. Hundreds of millions of people dead. Entire cities reduced to radioactive ash. And at the end, we developed weapons that could end all life on Earth within hours. Drake stood and walked to the photograph of Earth. We remember, Commander. Every human knows these lessons. It is burned into our collective memory. We teach it to our children. We make sure no generation ever forgets. But memory fades over time, Zelith pressed. Future generations may not carry that weight. They may not understand. Then we will remind them, Drake said with conviction. We have built memorial stations in orbit around Earth. Every child must visit them as part of their education. They see preserved ruins of destroyed cities. They read first-hand accounts from soldiers who fought in the trenches. They watch footage of nuclear explosions. We maintain museums dedicated to our worst moments, not to celebrate them, but to ensure we never forget what we are capable of doing. She turned back to face Zelith directly. You are right to be concerned, Commander. We could be conquerors if we chose that path. We have the military capability. But we have also learned another lesson from our history. Empires built on conquest eventually fall. They create resentment, rebellion, and endless conflict. They consume themselves from within. Then what do you want? Zelith asked simply. Why build such overwhelming force if not to use it? Drake considered the question for a moment. We want to survive. We want to ensure that no one can ever threaten humanity again, and we have learned that the best way to ensure that is to be so strong that no one would dare try. Do you understand the concept of deterrence? Yes, making yourself too dangerous to attack. Exactly. We do not want to rule the galaxy, Commander. We want to be left alone to grow and explore and trade on equal terms. But we will negotiate from strength, never from weakness. Never again from weakness, Zelith absorbed this. And if someone does threaten you despite your deterrence, if conflict comes despite all your preparations, Drake's expression became hard as steel. Then we will respond with everything we have. We will not strike first, Commander, but if forced to fight, we will fight to win decisively and completely. We will make the cost of attacking humanity so high that no one will ever consider it again. The words hung in the air between them. It was not a boast or an empty threat. It was simply a statement of fact delivered with absolute certainty. The galactic community needs to understand something about humans, Drake continued. We are not mindless warmongers. We value peace, art, science, and cooperation deeply. We want friends and allies, but we are also survivors. We climbed up from primitive conditions to touch the stars, and we did it while fighting each other every step of the way. That struggle made us hard. It made us dangerous, but it also made us very, very good at surviving. Zelith sat quietly, processing everything. What should I tell my government? What should I tell the other species when word of this spreads? Tell them the truth, Drake said simply. Tell them humanity wants to be friends. We want to trade and share knowledge. We want to contribute to the galactic community. But also tell them that we are not victims waiting to be protected. We are not resources to be exploited. We are equals whether the established powers are ready to accept that or not. Some species will not like that answer. Some will see it as arrogance. I know, Drake replied, but it is the only answer we can give. We would rather be respected and feared than liked and vulnerable. There was a long silence. Finally, Zelith stood to leave. You have given me much to think about, Admiral, and much to report. One more thing, Commander, Drake said as he reached the door. I want you to understand that everything I have told you comes from a place of respect. We know the Valorians are an ancient and wise civilization. We hope to learn from you, but we will learn as equals, not as students kneeling before a teacher. Zelith nodded slowly. I will convey your words exactly as you have spoken them. Later that night, Zelith sat alone in his quarters aboard the Valorian ship, composing his report to the High Council. He stared at the blank screen for a long time, trying to find the right words to explain what he had witnessed. How could he make them understand this strange combination of peaceful intentions and warlike preparation? In the end, he decided to be direct and honest. We have encountered a new species called humans, he wrote. They are few in number but vast in capability. They claim to want peace but are prepared for total war at a moment's notice. They are unlike any race we have previously contacted. They do not seek our approval or guidance. They demand respect and equal treatment. He paused, then added more. I recommend proceeding with extreme caution and respect in all future dealings. These are not primitives to be guided or educated. These are equals to be courted as friends or, if we are foolish, feared as enemies. Their military strength rivals our own despite their youth as a spacefaring civilization. Any conflict with humanity would be devastating for both sides. He attached all his documentation, including the combat footage, energy readings, and technical specifications the humans had openly shared. Then he encrypted the message with the highest security protocols and sent it off to the Valorian homeworld. Through his window, the human fleet hung in space around Jupiter. Silent, deadly, patient. Zelith wondered what other young species were out there in the galaxy, preparing to meet humanity for the first time. Would they recognize the danger hidden behind polite diplomacy? Would they treat these scarred survivors with the respect they demanded? Or would someone somewhere make the terrible mistake of underestimating them, of testing their resolve, of pushing them into a corner where they felt threatened? Zelith hoped desperately that he would never have to find out what humanity looked like when truly provoked. Because based on everything he had seen, that would be a nightmare that no one would survive. He looked one more time at the photograph he had taken of the frontier firing its full broadside. The raw power on display had been terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Sleep well, humans, he whispered to the silent ships, and please always remain our friends. Part 5. 3 months after the Valorian first contact, representatives from 16 different species gathered at a neutral station on the edge of known space. The humans had been invited to present themselves to the broader galactic community. Admiral Drake led the Earth delegation, joined by Ambassador Carl Stevens, an experienced diplomat, and Commander Lisa Zhang, one of Earth's most decorated combat pilots. The assembly chamber was massive and impressive. Artificial gravity adjusted for each species' comfort. The Valorians were there, of course. So were the insect-like Thraxians, the water-dwelling Nendari who moved in floating tanks, the crystalline Korthine whose bodies chimed when they spoke, and a dozen other races representing centuries or millennia of civilization. High Arbiter Vexen called the assembly to order. Vexen was a Thraxian whose carapace showed the scars of 3 centuries of service. His authority was unquestioned in this chamber. We gather to welcome a new species to our community, Vexen's translated voice announced. The humans of Earth. Commander Zelith of the Valorian Empire has shared his report, and it has raised significant concerns among several member species. Murmurs and various alien sounds of agreement rippled through the chamber. Drake stood calmly, her uniform perfect, her expression neutral and professional. Admiral Drake, Vexen continued, your species possesses military capabilities that far exceed normal levels for newly spacefaring civilizations. Some members of this assembly fear you may pose a threat to galactic stability and peace. Before Drake could respond, a Nendari representative surged forward in its water-filled mobility tank. The creature's tentacles waved aggressively. More than a threat, an aberration, the Nendari declared. No species should possess such overwhelming firepower without centuries of cultural development and wisdom. Who are you to claim equality with civilizations that have existed for thousands of years? Drake waited patiently for the translation to finish, then spoke clearly and without emotion. We claim equality because we have earned it, not through age or tradition but through capability and determination. Arrogance. The Nendari spat. Fact. Drake replied calmly. We did not choose to be born on a dangerous world where survival required constant innovation and struggle. We did not choose to fight our way through centuries of brutal conflict to reach the stars. But we did those things anyway, and they shaped us into what we are today. Ambassador Stevens stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his careful tone. Esteemed representatives, humanity understands your concerns completely. We are willing to participate in arms limitation discussions. We will establish protocols for military operations. We want to demonstrate our peaceful intentions through consistent action over time. However, Drake added firmly, we will not disarm ourselves. We will not reduce our defensive capabilities to levels that make us vulnerable, not for the comfort of species who have never faced the threats we have overcome. A Korthine delegate spoke up, its crystalline body producing musical chimes with each word. The Valorians describe weapons capable of destroying entire worlds. Do you humans possess such devices? The chamber fell completely silent. Every being present waited for the answer. Drake met the Korthine's optical sensors directly. Yes, we developed nuclear weapons before we even left our planet. We have since improved them significantly in both power and precision. Every battleship in our fleet carries weapons capable of rendering a planet uninhabitable if we chose to use them that way. Shocked reactions filled the chamber. Gasps, clicks, chimes, and other sounds of dismay echoed off the walls. However, Drake continued, raising her voice slightly. We have never used them against another species. We have possessed these weapons for over 200 of our years and used them exactly twice, both times against ourselves before we understood their full horror. That terrible experience taught us restraint and responsibility. Commander Zhang added, our weapons are not meant to threaten you. They are meant to ensure no one can threaten us. There is a very important difference between those two things. Arbiter Vexen clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. And if we demanded you reduce your military forces? If we made it a condition of joining the galactic community? Drake's answer came without any hesitation. Then we would not join. We would remain independent, maintain our own territories, and defend ourselves as we see fit. We want very much to be part of this community, but not at the cost of our security and sovereignty. The bluntness shocked many in the assembly. Most new species practically begged for inclusion in the galactic order, desperate for the technology and trade advantages it offered. You would isolate yourselves? A Valorian representative asked with surprise. If necessary, Stevens replied smoothly, though we would much prefer cooperation and friendship. We have much to offer in terms of technology and culture, and much to learn from all of you. But we negotiate as equals, or we do not negotiate at all. For several hours, the debate continued and sometimes grew heated. Some species demanded strict restrictions on human military growth. Others suggested a long probationary period during which humanity would be carefully monitored. A few species, including the Valorians, argued for immediate full membership with no special conditions beyond standard diplomatic and trade protocols. The arguments went back and forth. Drake answered every question honestly and directly. She refused to apologize for human strength, but also emphasized humanity's genuine desire for peace and cooperation. Finally, Arbiter Vexen called for silence. The ancient Thraxian had witnessed the rise and fall of many civilizations over his long life. When he spoke, everyone listened carefully. I have considered all the evidence, Vexen announced slowly. I have reviewed the detailed human history provided by their delegation. I have studied the combat footage and technical specifications, and I have reached a conclusion. The entire chamber waited in tense silence. Humanity is dangerous, Vexen said flatly. They possess the capability to wage war on a scale that could destabilize entire sectors of space. Their weapons could threaten any civilization represented in this chamber. Drake's expression did not change, but those who knew her well could see her hands tighten slightly on the podium edge. However, Vexen continued after a deliberate pause. Danger is not the same as threat. A dangerous species that attacks without provocation is a threat that must be contained. A dangerous species that seeks only to protect itself and cooperate peacefully is merely well armed. The Thraxian turned to face the human delegation directly. You have been completely honest about your capabilities. You have not hidden your weapons or your violent history. You have offered genuine cooperation while maintaining your sovereignty and dignity. These are not the actions of conquerors preparing for war. Vexen's mandibles clicked, and what Drake had learned was a gesture of respect. The Thraxian Collective supports full membership for humanity without special restrictions. We believe their strength will ultimately benefit the galactic community, provided we treat them as the equals they have proven themselves to be, and give them no cause to feel threatened by us. One by one, other species voiced their positions. The Valorians supported full membership immediately. The Korthine, who valued honesty and directness, also voted in favor. Several smaller species saw humanity as potential protectors against piracy and external dangers, and they voted yes as well. The Nendari remained firmly opposed, as did two other traditional powers who disliked the sudden shift in the balance of galactic power, but they were outvoted by a significant margin. It is decided, Vexon declared formally. Humanity is welcomed into the galactic community with full membership rights and all associated responsibilities. We will establish embassies, negotiate trade agreements, and begin cultural exchange programs. Drake allowed herself a small, professional smile. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we gratefully accept. We look forward to long and peaceful cooperation with all species represented here today. The assembly began to break up into smaller groups, discussing the implications of this historic decision. Drake found herself approached by Arbiter Vexen. "A private word of advice, Admiral," the ancient Thraxian said quietly. "Some species will test you despite today's vote. They will probe your borders, challenge your resolve, attempt to measure your actual capabilities against your stated ones. It is inevitable. We are prepared for that possibility," Drake replied. "I am certain you are, but remember this carefully. You have presented yourselves as defenders, not aggressors. If you respond with excessive force to minor provocations, you will confirm the fears of those who opposed your membership today. And if we do not respond strongly enough, we will appear weak and invite further testing." "Exactly. You walk a very narrow path, Admiral. I suggest you walk it with great care and wisdom." Drake nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his words. "We will. We have learned patience along with strength. We know how to show restraint. Then humanity will do well in the galactic community," Vexen said. "Welcome, Admiral Drake. Welcome to a much larger universe." Part 6. 3 weeks after the assembly, Admiral Drake stood in the observation deck of the USS Frontier, looking down at Earth from high orbit. Captain Murphy and Ambassador Stevens stood beside her, all three watching the blue planet slowly rotate beneath them. "We did it," Stevens said quietly. "We are officially part of the galactic community now, full members with all rights and privileges. We are on probation," Murphy corrected gently. "Everyone is watching very carefully to see what we do next. One wrong move and we could lose everything we gained." "Then we will not make any wrong moves," Drake replied. "We will be good neighbors, fair traders, and reliable allies. We will contribute to galactic science and culture. We will show them that humanity deserves the respect we demanded. While maintaining our fleets," Stevens added. "While maintaining our fleets," Drake agreed. "Strength and wisdom together. That is the only way forward." Below them, Earth continued its eternal dance. Cities glittered across the night side like jewels scattered on black velvet. Weather systems swirled over vast oceans. Billions of humans went about their daily lives, most of them completely unaware of the delicate diplomatic situation their representatives had just navigated. The past 3 weeks had been busy. Embassies were being established on Earth and on several alien homeworlds. Trade negotiations were beginning. Cultural exchange programs were being planned. Human scientists were already collaborating with alien researchers on various projects. Human merchants were exploring new markets and opportunities. But there were also tensions. The Nendari had protested the decision formally and were refusing to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. 2 other species were being cautiously distant. And there were rumors of species beyond the galactic community, powers that had not attended the assembly, who were very interested in these new humans. "What worries me," Murphy said, breaking the comfortable silence, "is that someone will eventually test us. Not the Valorians or the Thraxians or any of the reasonable species, but someone out there will want to see if our capabilities match our reputation." "It is inevitable," Drake agreed. "The galaxy is a big place with many different powers and interests. Someone will push to see where our boundaries are. How will we respond?" Stevens asked. Drake thought carefully before answering. "With exactly the right amount of force. Not too little, not too much. We will show that we can and will defend ourselves, but we will not escalate unnecessarily. We will be firm but not brutal. Strong but not cruel? That is a very fine line to walk, Murphy observed. Yes, it is. But we have walked fine lines before. Our entire history is about finding balance between strength and restraint, between power and responsibility. A communication alert sounded. Drake activated the display and the face of Lieutenant Foster appeared. Admiral, we have a situation developing. Long-range sensors have detected unknown vessels entering the outer system. They are not responding to hails and are not broadcasting any identification. Drake's expression became instantly focused. How many vessels? 12, ma'am. Cruiser-sized. Their configuration does not match any known species in our database. Battle stations, Drake ordered calmly, but do not power weapons yet. Let us see what they want. I am on my way to the bridge. The three officers moved quickly through the corridors of the massive ship. Crew members were already moving to their stations with practiced efficiency. There was no panic, no confusion. Just professionals doing what they had trained for. On the bridge, the tactical display showed the unknown vessels clearly. They were moving in formation, heading deeper into the solar system with clear purpose. Still no response to our hails, the communications officer reported. They are ignoring all standard greeting protocols. Weapon status? Drake asked as she took her command chair. All fleets are at condition 2, Foster replied. Ready to engage on your order, Admiral. Drake studied the display carefully. 12 ships was not enough to be an invasion force, but it was too many to be simple explorers. This felt like a probe, a test of human responses. Send one more message, she ordered. Clear and direct. Tell them they are entering United Earth territory without permission. They must identify themselves immediately or be considered hostile. The message was sent. 30 seconds passed with no response. The unknown vessels continued their approach. Admiral, Murphy said quietly, recommend we deploy the 4th Fleet to intercept. Show them we are serious but not aggressive, Drake nodded. Agreed. Deploy 4th Fleet to intercept position. Hold at maximum weapons range but do not lock targeting solutions unless they make hostile moves. Orders flashed out across the quantum communication network. Throughout the solar system, human warships began moving into position with coordinated precision. The 4th Fleet, consisting of 2 battleships, 8 cruisers and 20 destroyers, moved to place themselves between Earth and the unknown vessels. On the tactical display, the movement was clear and unmistakable. The unknown vessels had to see it. They had to understand they were being intercepted by a superior force. Still, they came forward. They are testing us, Stephen said softly, seeing if we have the courage to back up our words. Then we will show them, Drake replied. She opened a direct channel to the 4th Fleet commander. Admiral Chen, you are authorized to fire warning shots if they cross the intercept line. Make it very clear they are not welcome here. Understood, Admiral Drake, came the reply. The waiting was always the hardest part. Minutes ticked by slowly as the 2 groups of ships moved closer together. The unknown vessels showed no signs of slowing or changing course. Then they reached the intercept line. The USS Defender, flagship of the 4th Fleet, fired a single railgun round across the bow of the lead unknown vessel. The projectile passed within 100 meters of the ship. Close enough to be unmistakable but not close enough to cause damage. The unknown vessels finally stopped. We are receiving a transmission, the communications officer announced. Text only. It says, greetings, humans. We are the Krell Dominion. We came to see if your reputation was accurate. It appears it is. We will withdraw and return through proper diplomatic channels. Just like that. The unknown vessels turned and began accelerating away from the solar system. Drake let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Stand down from battle stations. Return to normal patrol status. Relief swept through the bridge, but Drake remained focused. That was a test, people. Just the first of probably many. They wanted to see if we were really watching our borders. If we would really respond to unauthorized entry. We passed, but barely. Should we pursue them? Foster asked. No, Drake decided. They are leaving peacefully. That is what we wanted. But log everything about their ships, their movements, their technology signatures. When they return through proper channels, we will know exactly who and what we are dealing with. Later that evening, Drake filed her report on the incident. She kept it factual and concise, noting that the situation had been resolved without violence but also emphasizing the need for continued vigilance. As she finished the report, she looked once more at Earth below. Humanity had entered a new era today. Not just the era of first contact or joining the galactic community, but the era of being a known quantity in galactic politics. Other species would test them. Some would become genuine friends and allies. Others would be competitors or rivals. A few might become enemies, but all of them would have to accept one simple truth: humanity was here to stay. They were strong enough to defend themselves, wise enough to avoid unnecessary conflicts, and determined enough to maintain their independence no matter what challenges came. The galaxy had a new player, and that player was not going to be pushed around or intimidated. Drake smiled slightly as she sent the report. The Krell had come expecting to find a species whose reputation exceeded their actual capabilities. Instead, they had found exactly what the reputation promised: a species ready to defend their territory without hesitation. Word would spread. Other species considering similar tests would think twice. And gradually, hopefully, humanity would find its place in the galactic order, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals, as partners, as friends to those who offered friendship and as a warning to those who offered threats. "Sleep well, Earth," Drake whispered to the planet below. "We are watching over you, and we always will be." Murphy appeared beside her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered one to her. "Long day," he observed. "Long 3 months," Drake corrected with a tired smile. "But we are making progress. Slowly but surely." "Do you think the Krell will come back peacefully?" "Probably. They got the message. We do not bluff. We do not make empty threats. We say what we mean and we back it up with action. Just like we promised the galactic community. Exactly like we promised." They stood together in silence, drinking their coffee and watching Earth turn below them. Around them, the frontier hummed with quiet activity. Crew members working their shifts, maintaining systems, running training exercises, staying ready for whatever came next. This was humanity's future. Not conquest or domination, but readiness. Not aggression, but deterrence. Not isolation, but engagement from a position of strength. It was not the easiest path, but it was the right one. And humanity had never been afraid of difficult paths. After all, Part 3. The formal negotiations continued for 3 days. The Valorians offered technology, star maps, and information about other species. The humans listened carefully, asked smart questions, and did not seem particularly impressed by anything. It frustrated Zealith, who was used to younger species hanging on every word. On the 4th day, Admiral Drake made an unusual request. "Commander Zealith, we would like to show you a demonstration. Nothing aggressive, just a training exercise we already had scheduled. We thought you might find it interesting." Zealith agreed, curious despite his growing unease about these humans. The Valorian delegation was transported to an observation station several thousand kilometers from Jupiter. Through the huge windows, they could see empty space and a designated area marked by floating beacons. Captain Murphy joined them, along with a younger officer named Lieutenant Ryan Foster. Foster looked to be about 30 years old with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "We will be running a standard intercept scenario," Murphy explained. "Pirates trying to raid a convoy. The convoy will be represented by automated drones. 3 of our destroyers will respond and engage." "Just 3 ships?" Zealith asked. "It is a small convoy," Murphy replied with a slight smile. The exercise began. On the tactical display screen, red icons appeared representing 15 pirate vessels. Actually, they were combat drones programmed to fight intelligently. They moved toward a group of blue icons that represented the convoy ships. Then 3 green icons appeared at the edge of the display, moving very fast. The human destroyers had arrived. USS Denver, USS Portland, and USS Tucson, Foster narrated calmly. Archer-class destroyers. Each has a crew of 200. They are engaging now. What happened next took Zealith's breath away completely. The destroyers did not slow down. They came in at high speed, and their formation split with perfect coordination. The lead ship, Denver, rolled 90 degrees to present her weapons and unleashed a broadside of railgun fire. The projectiles crossed the distance in just seconds. 3 pirate drones simply exploded, torn into pieces by tungsten slugs traveling at hypersonic speeds. Portland and Tucson swept wide in different directions, surrounding the pirate formation like predators circling prey. Missiles streaked from their launch tubes. Dozens and dozens of missiles, filling space with trails of exhaust. The pirate drones tried to evade, their point defenses activated, trying to shoot down the incoming missiles, But there were too many missiles coming too fast. Explosions blossomed silently in the vacuum of space. "Those are kinetic kill vehicles," Foster explained in a matter-of-fact tone. "No explosive warheads needed. When you hit something at those speeds, the kinetic energy alone is enough to vaporize the target." The remaining pirate drones tried to scatter and escape, but the destroyers moved to cut them off. They herded the drones into kill zones where they had no cover and no escape. Energy weapons reached out, invisible except for the brief glow when they hit. Where the beams touched armor, metal melted and vaporized. In under 4 minutes, it was over. 15 targets destroyed. Not a single one had managed to fire a shot at the human destroyers. Zelith stared at the debris field, all 4 of his eyes wide with shock. "That was remarkable precision and efficiency." "That was sloppy," Murphy said, frowning at the display. "Denver took 3 seconds too long on her targeting solution. Portland's missile spread was uneven. They will be running additional drills this week to correct these mistakes." "Sloppy," Zelith repeated, unable to believe what he was hearing. "That was the most efficient combat operation I have ever witnessed in my entire career." Foster pulled up statistics on another screen. "Average engagement time for Valorian forces against pirates, based on records you shared with us, is 18 minutes. We consider anything over 5 minutes to be unacceptable performance for a scenario like this." The young officer said it without any arrogance or boasting. He was just stating a fact. That somehow made it even worse. "Let me show you something else," Murphy said. He pulled up different footage on the screen. "This is from 5 years ago. The Frontier during her qualification trials. The video showed the massive battleship entering an asteroid field. Thousands of rocks, some as large as buildings, tumbled through space in random, chaotic patterns. It looked incredibly dangerous. We put her through obstacle course Delta," Murphy narrated. "Full speed with all defensive systems active." The Frontier accelerated into the asteroid field, and Zelith watched in amazement as the defensive grid came alive. Laser weapons tracked and destroyed incoming asteroids with computer precision. Larger rocks were hit with railgun fire and shattered into harmless fragments. The massive ship twisted and rolled through the field, maneuvering with grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "Her point defense system can track and engage 10,000 individual targets at the same time," Foster said. "That is enough to handle any missile. Swarm we can imagine an enemy throwing at us." The video ended with the Frontier emerging from the asteroid field, without a single scratch on her hull. "Every capital ship in our fleet can do this," Murphy added casually. "It is part of basic qualification standards." Zelith felt whatever remained of his confidence crumbling into dust. The Valorian military trained for ceremonial operations and occasional pirate suppression. These humans trained as if they expected to face an enemy that would try to completely destroy them. "Commander," Admiral Drake's voice came through the communication system. "We have one more demonstration if you are interested. Something a bit more impressive." Zelith was not sure he wanted to see more, but he nodded agreement anyway. "We are bringing the Frontier into position now," Drake continued. "We are going to show you why we call them battleships." Through the observation window, the massive vessel began to turn slowly. It positioned itself to present the entire port side to empty space. Every weapon port opened, every targeting system activated. The ship looked like a predator baring its teeth. "Fire Mission Alpha," Murphy said quietly. "Full broadside." The Frontier fired everything. The universe seemed to light up. Railguns sent hypersonic projectiles screaming into the void. Missiles launched in a continuous stream, hundreds of them creating a wall of fire. Energy weapons drew brilliant lines of light across space. The barrage continued for 30 full seconds, an unrelenting storm of destruction that would have annihilated an entire fleet. When it finally stopped, Zelith checked the energy readings on his datapad. His hands shook slightly. The power output for that single salvo exceeded what the Valorian flagship could generate in an entire day of continuous operation. That was approximately 20% of the Frontier's total offensive capability, Drake said, calmly over the communication link. "We rarely need to use more than that in any combat situation, but the full capability is there if we ever need it." Zelith understood now with absolute clarity. The humans had not simply built a fleet. They had built an instrument of total destruction and wrapped it in diplomatic protocols and polite conversation. These ships could sterilize planets. They could destroy entire armadas. They could wage war on a scale that would make older civilizations tremble. And they had done it all in just 70 years. "Thank you for the demonstration," Zelith said, his voice sounding weak even to his own ears. "It was very educational." "You are welcome, Commander," Drake replied. "We believe in transparency. We want potential friends to understand exactly what we are capable of. That way, there are no misunderstandings later." As the Valorian delegation prepared to return to their ship, Zelith stood at the observation window one last time. The human fleet hung in space, silent and deadly. Beautiful in a terrible way. Kresh approached him quietly. "What will you tell the High Council?" Zelith thought carefully before answering. "The truth, that we have encountered a species that will reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, whether we like it or not, and that we should make very certain we are on their good side."